you've got to treat everybody fairly, but you can't treat them the same. It's the situation of some employees, they require a different type of management.
Yeah.
Some employees require, a management of encouragement, really, really just encouragement. And then some employees look at it and say, hey, I'm going to push these boundaries as much as I can.
That's right.
And I'm going to see, how much Adam's actually going to take.
You're listening to Home Care Hindsight, the podcast where we talk with home care leaders about the big mistakes they've made and the even bigger lessons they've learned along the way. I'm David Knack, head of sales here at Zingage, and I've built a career on the idea that we learn a whole lot more from our mistakes than from our successes, which is great because I've made a lot of mistakes. I've gotten to know some of the leaders in this industry who've built amazing businesses and are super well respected. So I thought it'd be fun, instead of asking them about the great things they've accomplished, to have them tell the story of one of the biggest mistakes that they've made and how that mistake changed their thinking and the way they run their business. All right, we are back with another episode of Home Care Hindsight. Joining me today is Adam Berry from As Close as Family. Adam, thanks so much for joining the show.
Hi, David. Thank you for having me.
So for people who aren't familiar with you, how would you introduce yourself?
Chief cook and bottle washer, pretty much, for a home care agency. So, my name is Adam Berry. I'm CEO of As Close as Family, and we're based in Alabama. To introduce myself would be just my background is home health physical therapy before we started As Close as Family, and seeing that need for home care and now fulfilling that need for the last 8 years.
Yeah. One thing when we were chatting a little bit that stood out to me is Alabama. I live in Arkansas now, but grew up in Tennessee. Like many of those other states, highly unregulated as it relates to home care. And you've been, I think, pushing for standards, licensure practices, some regulation in your state and in the surrounding area. So talk a little bit about how that came about, why that's important to you, and kind of your role in pushing for some of those sorts of things.
With regulation, I'm not looking for over-regulation,
Right.
looking for regulation, something where not the situation of we say, one of the old sayings, when the cat's away, the mice play. And that's not what we want. We want an over across the board, same standards for everyone to ensure the safety of our clients, to ensure the safety of our caregivers.
Yeah.
So it's a two-way street, to provide that safe caregiver, but yet they have to provide the safe place for that caregiver.
Yeah.
So, have the Bill of Rights, the client Bill of Rights, but also have a caregiver Bill of Rights.
Yeah, makes a ton of sense. So I do this segment on the show where I ask somebody, what kind of person are you? And in order to ask that question, I'll explain. People generally, I think, see me as a very laid back, loosey-goosey kind of person. That's on purpose. I like floating through life, living the dream, all that kind of stuff. But just beneath the surface, there's a huge amount of anxiety inside of me. And my goal is for people to not see that or experience that. But sometimes it comes out. And that's my secret character flaw that I think people are typically surprised to find out. They're like, oh, wow, you're actually not as laid back as you seem. That's correct. So what's your secret character flaw that people would be surprised by?
Oh, gosh. Just off the top of my head would probably be I'm not a very patient person.
Yeah.
Very driven, very go, go, go. And, yesterday was late pretty much. If today's the deadline, yesterday was late. If you're 5 minutes early, you're 10 minutes late.
Yeah.
So that's the top. I guess that would probably be my biggest.
Yeah. Well, and it sounds like one of those things, like kind of my experience in life, it can kind of be a superpower and a really good part of your personality, but also it can rear its ugly head and rub people the wrong way and all those kinds of things.
It can drive people nuts. I mean, it's, I know I'm like, well, here he comes again, with no patient, Mr. No Patience showing up here. So
yeah, makes sense. Well, good. Well, Adam, thanks for coming on the show. I bring people on this show who are really successful, who've built great businesses and, have accomplished a lot of things. And instead of asking about all the stuff that they're good at, I ask people what the biggest mistake they've made is in their career and what they learned from it. So what's your big mistake?
Let's see. Probably biggest mistake, I would say, just off the top of my head, would be, I would say Rome wasn't built in a day.
Sure.
It goes back to that patience thing again. But Rome wasn't built in a day, and I expect too many things to happen at one time instead of just letting them happen. And it goes into several other things of having the right people in place to make
Yeah.
those things happen.
Yep.
But my biggest thing would probably be not putting that plan in place and allowing that plan to come to fruition before changing. What's the flavor of the day, pretty much.
Yeah.
Of actually having that plan and sticking with that plan.
Yeah.
So that's probably my biggest is that consistency to stay focused.
Yeah. Is there a particular time that you're thinking of that this was most evident to you in the business, either recently or when you're just starting out and you realized like, okay, we've got to make some changes or else this is not going to go so good?
Have you seen the cartoons where they start the list and the list just piles out and it just keeps going down?
Yeah.
That would probably be what it would be. It would be one of those. But I can think back of a few. We started a pilot co-pilot program.
Okay.
And the pilot co-pilot program of just not following through with that. It was a great program, but we didn't follow through and I didn't have that consistency. So that would probably be one of the biggest things. And the pilot would be a senior employee with a junior employee.
Sure.
So if we have someone come on board new, they're the co-pilot. We have the pilot, and that's been it worked, but it was more of the flavor of the day, and we needed to progress out with that instead of something else is shiny. Let's go after that.
Yeah, my default there is we've got to give something a try for at least 90 days before we know whether or not it could even work, right?
We're good to make 90 seconds sometimes.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah. What's the thing you guys have done lately that you actually followed through on and it made a big difference?
Probably in 24 we really had a strategic plan and we really stuck with that strategic plan tighter than we've ever stuck with anything.
Yeah.
In the 8+ years. And it really made a difference. We saw over 30% growth just in 24.
That's super impressive, especially because you guys are not starting out, you don't have, 500 hours a week that you guys are delivering. I mean, you guys are at some significant scale. So 30% on top of that's crazy. How have you seen, because I always think about this in terms of like leadership, the tendency is to kind of go, move from thing to thing. And that kind of trickles down and makes its way into the broader culture. And so how have you seen your team adapt and change kind of their approach to work as you've gotten a little bit more disciplined, at least over the last year or so?
Probably one of the biggest things, I brought in a vice president of operations.
Yeah.
And her background was 18 years in home health and hospice. So bringing her in, she really brought in that, here's the game plan.
Yeah.
Do you agree with this game plan? Yes, I do. No, I don't. We worked those out. I think this will work. I don't think this will work. Really worked with her on those. And she's the implementer. So we did some EOS type work a little bit of really understanding I'm the visionary, she's the implementer, and that's really made a big difference there.
And I think one of the things, and you and I discussed this a little bit, I think the visionary, which is you in this case, has a high capacity and a high tolerance for change. But downstream, the folks in the office who are responsible for what happens after we make those changes, I think typically have a lot more bias towards consistency, predictability. Change is actually bad.
And you burn your staff out.
Yeah.
You literally burn your staff out, and you don't mean to do it, but you actually end up burning your staff out. And because they're just like, we're tired.
Yeah.
We're tired, and you can see it. And once you understand that and realize that and have that real vulnerable moment to say, hey, you know what? I suck at this.
Yeah.
I suck at consistency. And that's where really since I've sat down and said, hey, consistency is not my strong point, but yet that is my vice president of operations. She is consistent every single day. It's the same thing. And, but yet she's holding me accountable and saying, hey, we said we wasn't going to try anything new until this point. So you have to have that vulnerability, but to have that accountability.
Yeah, and I think that managing up is really important too, is surrounding, like building a team of people who aren't afraid to say to you, this isn't working. Which
Definitely.
is the first, 30% of the thing. You've got to be able to express what the problem is and why it's a problem. But then I think the second piece of that is coming with a solution or a plan or something that is the alternative. Because if we just say, I don't like this, that doesn't help anybody a lot. But if we say, hey, I'm having issues with this, here's what I would propose as the solution. And so I think, creating a culture where people feel comfortable managing up, I think is really important. And I think, a lot of that is kind of undoing some of the people who work in the office and their kind of baggage that they carry in from other bosses that they've worked with.
Right. And that's one of the biggest things that I'm seeing with is, anyone can steer the ship. As I think as John Maxwell says, anyone can steer the ship, but it takes a leader to chart the course.
Mm.
And if you understand that place and understand where you're supposed to be at, going back to your point of, if they're that's one of the biggest things that just sort of just gets under my skin. But when I have an employee that comes in and says, "Hey, I don't think this will work," okay, great. Number one, tell me why. Number two, tell me what you recommend.
Yep.
Because if you come to me and you tell me this is not going to work, but you don't have a solution for it, you're complaining. But if you come to me with an issue and you say, "Hey, I feel this is an issue," okay, why? I'm gonna sit here, I'm gonna listen to you, and we're going to look at it together. And if I say, "Okay, what do you propose that we do?" They have that proposal, they have that solution that they have in mind. They're problem solving.
Yeah.
So don't come to me complaining, come to me problem solving.
Yeah.
And that's a big, big, big thing. And that's where, I can put a lot of stock. I know when those employees come to me and with that heart and with that on their heart, and come to me in that manner, it works so much better because what's the story of Who's Got the Monkey? I don't know if you've ever read the old management, but that's the thing is don't leave that monkey on my desk. You're going to take it with you when you leave.
Yep.
And so if you've never read that, I would highly recommend. That's a good little short little read, but it's a great, great story.
Yeah. I would guess there's probably people listening to this who have ambitions of going from like a single location to 2 locations, or maybe staying with one location, but getting themselves out of the day-to-day operations so they can go on a 2-week vacation and not stress that the business is going to burn down around them. And so as you've expanded locations, what are the things that you've seen practically work really well for you not having to be in person physically at each of your several locations to make the thing work?
Probably a rinse and repeat. We had a gentleman come in and speak to our staff one time, and just a great, great leader. Fred was his name, and he come in and he said something at first that caught me off guard. He said, "You've got to treat everybody fairly, but you can't treat them the same." And at first I was like, whoa, 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 hang on. How can you do that? But, it's the situation of some employees, they require a different type of management.
Yeah.
Some employees require, a management of encouragement, really, really just encouragement. And then some employees look at it and say, "Hey, I'm going to push these boundaries as much as I can."
That's right.
And I'm going to see, how much Adam's actually going to take.
Yeah.
And, those employees don't work out sometimes, but, sometimes they do. It's the situation of iron sharpens iron.
Yeah.
But that would be a big thing is knowing what drives your employees.
That makes a ton of sense. All right, let's move to something where I ask you about, and when I asked, "Do you want to run through the outline?" You're like, "Nope, I do good on the fly." So I don't even know what you're going to say here. But when something that's either underrated in the industry or totally overrated in the industry, so either people significantly undervalue it, overlook it all the time, or something that's overrated and it's people talk about how great it is, but it's actually not all it's cracked up to be.
I would say underrated. I'm going to go with underrated on this one. And this keeps going back and don't want to be the dead horse as the saying goes, but consistency. That is something that is totally, I feel like, is underrated. Is, talking with other home care owners at some of the events that we attend every year, is don't try that flavor of the month. Really sit down and figure out what you and your team are going for.
Yeah.
And have that consistency to follow through with it. So I think that is something that's underrated, is having that consistency and staying laser focused.
Yep, makes sense. Let's think about like a particular, I think about the kind of pillars of like, okay, there's, client acquisition, client retention, there's caregiver acquisition, caregiver retention. Pick one of those and think through like, what are the ways that you've seen your staff not be consistent and try stuff that here and there that didn't work. And then, when they really got down to brass tacks and got consistent on the thing, like what was the difference that it made?
I would say an overall process. And I would say it would be, recruiting would be one.
Sure.
The recruitment of, it's an ever changing thing. I mean, the way you're reaching people, the way you're reaching caregivers is, you reach them through Indeed, you reach them through some staffing services, you reach them through, some of the social media and all that. But is knowing, even though this is shiny over here on this side and looking at it, if you're saying, "Hey, we're going to push, a lot of money into social media this month."
Yep.
Do it. if you're saying 30 days, if you're saying 45 days, if you're saying 90 days, which, since we've adopted the more of the 90-day approach, it seems like it's really worked so much better.
Yeah.
But, pick that lane, and that lane, and stay in that lane.
Yeah, I think, it's this challenge, and I like that you brought up recruiting as an example because it's changing so quickly. And this labor market is different now than it was 5 years ago. Where people find jobs is different now than it was 5 years ago. And so I think like Indeed is going to be a constant in this industry, but the kinds of things you need to do to stand out are changing. And so I think it's kind of a helpful thought experiment of, okay, these are things that are rapidly changing. The way people use them is changing, but we've got to stay consistent in our message and in our approach. And so it sounds to me like social media has been useful to you guys. Nobody in Alabama is allowed to use anything you say here. This is proprietary to you in Alabama. But when you guys are using social media to reach out, is that Facebook? Is that Instagram? And then are you guys running ads? I'm curious kind of tactically how all that works.
We do all the above. And that's, like I said, with me, I mean, it's literally, it's changing from one 60 days, 90 days to the next, because it depends on, are we talking about W-2 flu here?
Mm-hmm.
Are we talking about, people's not going to work around the time they're getting those W-2s, time they're getting taxes, around the summer when kids are out of school? People's got different things going on. So during those times, you've got to change your recruitment tactics throughout the year.
Yeah.
And know, hey, this works better in the first quarter. This works better in the second, third, fourth quarter.
Yeah.
What works more? Hey, recruiting bonus of Christmas cash, recruiting bonus of, hey, we're going to have a competition for a summer family vacation. Whoever ranks in the most, we're going to draw out, still not afraid to try something new, but knowing, hey, this works or this doesn't work, but truly just staying in that lane and staying focused.
I really like that because I think the best recruiting tactics have a retention impact as well. And so if you're doing a competition for a summer vacation or you're doing a retention bonus centered around Christmas cash, that's something that means something to your existing employees, but that's also a really great way to differentiate yourself and be interesting, right? Everybody talks about great pay and benefits and flexible schedules and all that kind of stuff, but everybody offers that. And so the question is, what can we do that's out of the box that nobody else is going to do because it takes a little bit of creativity, and that's an opportunity to stand out and differentiate yourself in the eyes of your existing employees and your prospective employees. I really like it.
One of the things that we did that actually worked very well, it was, we call it Power One, but it was a power bill program. So it was called Powerhouse. And so what we did is, you have power to your house, you have the electricity bill. So if you refer a person, they work 250 hours, or 500 hours or whatever, then we're going to pay your electric bill for a month or 2 months. You bring us your electric bill, we're going to pay it up to $200, $250. We've done power wash for their cars. We've done Powerhouse. We've done Power Trip, which is a trip, a vacation. So we built off of that. So that's really been beneficial.
Really smart to, instead of say, here's $250, to instead say, here's $250 worth of something. You got
to find out what's important to them and what drives them.
Yeah, the power bill, makes a ton of sense, as is a really smart kind of way to innovate on that. And again, it's it's the scarcity, it's the novelty of the thing that gets people's attention, because just an offer of money out there, there's a lot of places people can get money, but there's only one place they can get their electric bill paid or that they can get a vacation paid for, and that's with you guys. So I really like that. We talked about a big mistake that you've made in your career, but let's talk about a little mistake you see home care owners make all the time. And if they quit, it would make their lives, their businesses, like 10 times better.
I would say probably delegate and not abdicate. So a lot of people want to delegate, or they're saying it's delegation, but they throw it off on their employees and they never think anything else about it. And that's actually abdication. And you want to actually have that delegation where you can actually develop that employee and be there for that employee, and not just, here, take this away, leave me alone, you take it. But because if you work with that employee hand in hand, then the next time they're going to know what to do already, and you're going to develop them and work on. I think that's something, a little mistake that can turn into a big mistake, is not developing your staff and working with them on actually delegating things to them to instill that trust of, hey, you know what? Adam actually trusts me with this, or Heather actually trusts me with this, or Carrie Ann actually trusts me with this. But it's that, hey, coming alongside and working as one. One of the things that we do not use the statement at his closest family is so and so works here, so and so works for us. No, 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 no. They work with us. I
Mm,
don't care if it's the person that has, that we're training from day one, or if it's the caregiver that comes in with 25 years experience.
yeah.
It doesn't matter. We work together. We don't work for each other. We don't do that. We work together.
Mm, I really like that. I mean, delegate but not abdicate is feels like something that should be on every business owner's wall. And I think it's this challenging pendulum swing to where a lot of operators have difficulty letting go of their tasks, whether it's the schedule, whether it's the sales process to families, whatever the case may be. And then by the time they finally feel like, if I don't let this thing go, I'm going to lose my mind, I'm going to get burnt out, I'm going to quit, then they get it as far away from them as possible and they don't want to think about it anymore. And then, there's two problems there, that least, probably more. But, the staff that has been handed to is not adequately trained and supported and prepped for the task, and they have to kind of go figure it out on their own. And then the owner, who is a control freak by and large, comes back to the thing and says, "Hey, how are you doing on that task?" And they look, and there's stuff that is legitimately missing, and that hasn't been done the right way a lot of times. But then there's also like kind of just personal preference of, I would have done it differently, and now I feel like I've got to take ownership of that thing again. And so, I mean, it sounds to me like, and if you weren't able to do this, you'd probably be a lot smaller and fewer locations and all that than you are today. So, I mean, how do you thread that needle between, okay, I have to retain control of this thing because this business is the baby, it's the thing I've built, it's the thing I'm proud of, and okay, I'm so sick of this, I've got to get it as far away from me as possible.
I would say critical control points, having those in place, of actually, of giving them that task, but yet, hey, still checking in with them there.
Yep.
Therefore, again, it goes from delegation and, hey, we're going to check in with this every week. And
Yep.
then if they're not, if it's not happening, it's not happening like you want it to, then instead of every week, you need to check in every 3 days.
Mm.
So I'm going to check in with you on Monday and I'm going to check in with you on Thursdays.
Yep.
And not wait that full week from Wednesday to Wednesday or Friday to Friday.
Yep.
And, or just that literally being connected with that employee of walking by their office and saying, hey, how's it going?
Yep.
Or picking up the phone and calling and saying, how's it going? But the other thing is also just, keep some thank you cards. I reached down to my desk to get one.
Right. Sure.
But keep some thank you cards, keep some postcards in your desk of those employees that you're working with. And the handwritten note means a lot of times.
Yep.
Means a whole lot compared to just hey, you did a great job, compared to actually mailing them a thank you note of, hey, thank you for taking this task and working this task. And now, granted, I'm sitting here in the chair and, I've failed so many times by not
Right.
sending those
Right.
when I should have. That's made a big difference also, I feel like. But, just having that relationship with those employees where if it's not going like it should be going, that they understand, that, hey, you're in their corner. John Atkinson with Access Care was speaking with him one day, and he said, you praise 3 times as much as you criticize. And that one really, really struck home. And I've remembered that. Gosh, that's been 4 or 5 years ago that he made that statement.
Mm.
And it's really, really stuck with me to praise that employee and work with that employee. But yet, when it's not happening, when things are not happening like they should, they know that you're coming to them out of care and not out of just, hey, I want to gripe and complain about something.
I think people's, and this is probably just me projecting my secretly anxious human, but I think people's default expectation is, I'm probably not doing as good of a job as I could. There's a lot of imposter syndrome out there. And so if the instinct is to criticize or correct or give a whole bunch of feedback on people's performance that they need to make changes on, I think that's going to reinforce this belief that a lot of people already have of, well, I'm actually not good at this anyways. I'm actually not qualified for this anyways. I'm in over my head. And so I think, creating those opportunities to intentionally, on purpose, provide that kind of positive reinforcement that, hey, you are like qualified for this and you're good at your job and stuff, goes a long way. And then I like the thing that you said of, I haven't sent those out as much as possible or as much as I should have. I've missed opportunities to do it. I think it's a good reminder for everybody of, Yeah, for sure. Like, don't forget stuff. Don't forget birthdays. Don't forget work anniversaries. But nobody is like looking in their mailbox and thinking, oh, Adam didn't actually send me a card when I did XYZ thing. I think most of the time, those are things that are unexpected windfalls that people tend not to expect from their place of employment. And so if you miss a couple, it's probably the case that your team is not looking in their mailboxes wondering where the card is from you. And so instead of feeling indebted to the pile of gift card or of thank you notes that didn't get sent, sending one today is probably a good step for everybody listening to this episode.
Definitely pick one up. I'll put a challenge out. When we finish up with the podcast today, I'm going to try to send at least two to send those. So I'll put the challenge out to all the listeners of, hey,
Yep.
send a couple of thank you cards to those staff today.
Yeah,
just for no reason.
We've got in our Slack channel, which is what we use for all of our internal comms, we've got a kudos channel where we shout out all the good work that people are doing within our org. And so I'll send a couple of those out. We've got a small team, but there's some folks who've done really great work that I need to acknowledge and celebrate within our team.
Definitely.
Okay, great. Well, before we sign off, we talked about a lot of mistakes that people make and stuff that goes wrong, but I like to end every episode on a high note. And so what's something that's happened lately in your business that you're really proud of?
We've had probably one of the biggest that's been most recently. I know we're in Alabama, but we actually have winter weather.
Sure.
And, everybody thinks Alabama is just the devil's breath pretty much. It's so hot here all the time, but we've actually had we've had some really cold weather this year. Had winter weather shut us down for several days, but the team has really pulled together, which is, up north, people deal with that all the time. But down here, we have one of our towns here, we have one snowplow, but our team has, so when it comes a small, snow, it shuts us down significantly.
Yep.
But our team has really pulled together, and instead of, hey, we're just going to take the day off, we're going to do this, we had each staff member calling each one of the clients, each one of the caregivers, and saying, hey, how's everything? Is everything okay? And just really checking in with them. I really feel like the team pulled together during those days because it was unexpected. It sort of popped up on us the last minute, and was one of the snows we had was supposed to go further north. Well, it come further south. But very thankful our team pulled together like that.
Yep. Well, and I just want to say, as somebody from the South who has experienced winter weather here, is we are not prepared to drive on that stuff.
Oh, no.
We got bald tires. We got front wheel drive, no weight in the back of the vehicle. People around us don't know how to drive. And the worst part is we are rarely cold enough for long enough that it comes down as nice powdery snow that sits on the road. There is typically a big old sheet of ice underneath all of that.
Definitely.
That nobody needs to drive on, period. So I know people in the South get a bad rap for being terrible at driving when it snows, and that some of that is deserved, but also some of those environmental conditions do make it crazy. So glad to hear the team pulled together and you guys were still able to deliver the care you needed to your clients.
Definitely. It was very thankful that we're seeing some warmer weather now. So hopefully we made it through, knocking on wood, for this winter.
That's right. Well, Adam, thanks so much for coming on the show. Before we sign off, what do you want to plug? Where can people find you? What do you want people to do as a result of listening to this episode?
They can check out isclosestfamily.com, see a little more about the agency. The main thing I really want to plug would be the Home Care Association of America. I am the chair for the Alabama chapter, and have sort of voluntold to do that. But it's been a very eye-opening experience. Really enjoy it. And there's an advocacy day coming up in DC, April the 8th and 9th. So we go up, we meet with our representatives, and that's been a very, very good. If you're not involved in HCOA, I would very, very highly recommend getting involved in that.
Yeah, it's a great organization. We went to their national conference for the first time this last year, and great organization to be a part of. Really care about the future of home care and making sure that we're delivering this in a safe and sustainable way that sets us up for success for the long term.
Oh, Jason and Jennifer at HCOA and Eric and the full team there have been outstanding to work with, and a lot of great things coming. But really looking forward to that, and looking forward to Advocacy Day. This will be third or fourth year I've been to it, and it's really been an eye opening seeing how things work and working with. We have a large group there from all over the U.S. that goes in, and we go meet with all of our representatives, and it's been a great thing. But the other things they support with with the continuing education and the just what they're doing every day has made a big difference.
Well, Adam, thanks so much for coming on the show today. Really enjoyed it.
Yes, thank you so much.
On behalf of the team here at Zingage, thanks for listening to the show. We'll be back next week with another episode, so be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts on Spotify or Apple or YouTube. Leave us a rating while you're there. It helps other people find the show. If you have comments on the show, drop me a line, david@zingage.com. Would love to hear from you, chat with you there.